Hey, how's it going and welcome to another video. So today I figured it'd be fun to check out and kind of review what I think is Persona's most infamous social link. I am of course talking about Persona 3's Moon Arcana, aka Nozomi Soemitsu. I think this link has kind of evolved beyond just being like a bad social link and has kind of become like the figurehead for bad social links in the series. But I figured it'd be fair to give the social link an honest look through since I feel like it's kind of reached this status where a lot of people just say it's bad without actually like going through it or considering why it's so bad. And sometimes things kind of end up with this status where they're just so widely perceived of as bad, people don't even give it a fair chance. So today I'm basically just going to be giving it a fair shake and seeing if it really is as bad as people make it out to be. So before even really getting into the content of the social link, I think Nozomi's first problem really starts with his design. I feel like Nozomi kind of gets written off at first glance because, let's be honest, he's not winning the most attractive Persona character award anytime soon. And fiction also tends to have this habit of like correlating characters' attractiveness with their morality, if that makes sense. Think about how many times you've either played a video game or watched an anime and one of the antagonists is just this big fat fuck, right? Now try to think about how many fictional good guys look like that. Now obviously not every villain is unattractive and not every good guy is a supermodel. But Persona does kind of have a habit of doing this, like, even though she's not like a villain, Hanako in Persona 4 is definitely an antagonistic force. And then you have like Kaneshiro in Persona 5 and Kubo in Persona 4. How many times have you read a doujin and a fat bastard shows up? Like, it really says a lot about society, truly, but it really does seem like we tend to associate characters' attractiveness with like their status as being a villain. To use Kubo again as an example, I feel like if you showed 10 people a picture of Kubo and asked them, is this a good guy or a bad guy? Most would probably lean towards him being a bad guy, literally just based on his appearance. So I feel like, unfortunately for Nozomi, that's where a lot of his problems begin, is people see him, they see that he's kind of a chunkster and just write him off as being like, maybe not a dude you necessarily want to hang out with. So when it comes to the actual social link, I think one of the biggest problems is just the fact that he starts off being so confrontational. One of the very first quotes he says is, "Would you mind not standing so close to me? It's 'cause you're so thin and cool. If people start thinking we're best friends or something, I'm going to end up as the uncool one." So I think from the get-go, this kind of sets a bad taste in people's mouths, and there's totally a lot of ways that you can do these social links correctly. Just a couple off the top of my head: EY in Persona 5, the Monk in Persona 3, Naoki in Persona 4. And where I think those succeed and Nozomi's fails is just the fact that those characters have a much better air of mystery about them. And while those characters definitely start off being standoffish, there's at least a mystery to be solved or something of intrigue surrounding them. For example, EY giving you the paper bag with the gun in it. That's interesting, you want to know what's going on with that. And even though the link attempts to have a hook by having the middle-aged guy harass him, it ends up being largely forgotten about, and instead you kind of just eat for a few ranks. Now I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say I don't think that the constant eating is the worst thing about this social link. I think having a social link revolving around such a negative trait like gluttony is what sets a lot of people off, but I really do think it's everything else about Nozomi that kind of sets me off. First of all, Nozomi is kind of just unpleasant to talk to. I'd imagine for a lot of people going through Persona 3, they would do maybe 1, 2, or 3 ranks of this, realize this guy's insufferable, and then move on. He just has this irritating, weirdly boisterous presence to him, and it wouldn't be so bad if he wasn't so braggadocious about an objectively bad trait, that being gluttony. And I think in a game where your most important resource is time, that's a really bad thing. If you have free time in Persona 3, who would you rather hang out with? One of the numerous cutie patooties? Maybe one of your boys like Kaz or Kenji? How's about you improve one of your stats? Or you could go eat with Nozomi. Imagine this scenario, right? You are given the option to rank 10 with the girl, or you can spend time with Nozomi and watch him nearly shit himself. Make your choice, Western man. But I think things start to get really actually bad for Nozomi when the cult and money taking gets involved. So far, the link has been mostly not pleasant, but there's at least room for improvement. It's always darkest before the dawn, as they say, so maybe Nozomi's gonna start to make some real strides to improve himself. Maybe you're gonna be a good influence on him, he's gonna kind of change his ways. But then you learn that he's been swindling money from people and that he's also, like, a Jehovah's Witness. He starts rambling on about paradise and how certain people aren't going to be saved when the world is wiped out. This is followed by more eating, of course, and even though things are obviously happening, it doesn't really feel like you're making progress towards much of anything. Most other social links in Persona 3 at least have a sort of central goal in mind, even if it is something rather petty. For example, Kenji's social link revolves around him trying to get with that MILF. Fuka's revolves around her getting better at cooking. Chihiro's revolves around getting over her fear of men. There's at least an objective and a feeling that you're moving towards something in those other social links, but it doesn't really feel like there's a goal in Nozomi's social link, which I think leads to a lot of people abandoning it pretty quickly. There's not really an objective here other than to survive, I guess. Man, that would have made this social link a lot better, is if, like, in the corner, every time you do this social link, it just says objective, survive. Hell, even characters like Tanaka, who I think most would agree is not that great of a guy, is at least a very entertaining sort of dude. There's a sort of shifty, ooh, I shouldn't be doing this kind of feeling involved with hanging out with Tanaka. It's like hanging out with your one uncle who's been in trouble with the law before. Whereas Nozomi has more the kind of energy of a little kid who wants to play games on your phone. It's not really endearing, there's nothing fun about it. And with Nozomi, it feels like everything to him is either the greatest achievement of all time, or deserving of a pity party. It feels like the guy is very rarely just talking. He's either going on about how he's saving people, or how he's the greatest gourmet of all time, or how you're beneath him, or how he's so great. And it ultimately reaches this point where when people are trying to beat him up for stealing their money, I don't really stop and think, I gotta help my friend Nozomi. I just think, yeah, I mean, what did you think was gonna happen? And I feel like that's a very bad sign, because I just mentally ran through basically every Persona 3 character and thought, yeah, you know what, if you got into a fight, I think I would back you up. I would back up Kenji, I would back up Kaz, I would back up Tanaka, any member of C's. If Bunkichi was about to get his ass beaten, I would help him out. And even though the intention is obviously for you to feel bad for him, I just don't. And finally, at the very end at rank 10, there's a sort of resolution to it. You learned how Nozomi ended up this way because of the death of his brother, and after failing at literally everything, he decided to just eat. And after a while, that kind of just became his identity and a source of pride for him. In all honesty, it's not a bad resolution. It's decently sad, feels weirdly kind of realistic in a way, but it comes too late. Mentally, at this point, I think most people will have been checked out. I'm totally okay with the idea of a social link that doesn't really get going until halfway. Hell, I would say for most of them, the central conflict doesn't really start until rank 5 or 6. But with Nozomi, it just feels like you go through 9 ranks of what is basically self-inflicted bullshit just for an okay resolution. And I do honestly think this social link could have been done right. It has a lot of decent pieces, they're just placed horribly. So here's a couple of things I would have changed around to make this link better. Number 1 is to have an actual goal to work towards. I think this is a big part of why the social link feels so aimless and so kind of negative, is just the fact that there's not really anything being made progress towards. I think if this was instead a story about his journey to lose weight, it would have been a lot better. The problem with Nozomi really isn't the fact that he starts off shitty, it's the fact that he continues to be shitty for so long. I actually really like the idea of a dude who loses a family member, gives into his vices, starts treating other people like shit, and ultimately learns to be a better person. Oh wait a minute, that's just Naoki from Persona 4. I think if the first 3 or so social links he kinda treats you badly, it would be perfectly fine. It would work well in building up a story about a guy who's lost somebody and doesn't want to really let anybody else into his life, and who instead wants to fill his heart with food, you know, philosophically and physically. After a couple of ranks, he would give in and admit that he doesn't like living this way, that he feels sick all the time, he's low energy, and he really wants to make a change, but just doesn't know how to. This is when you guys start working towards an exercise regime, get him on a healthier diet, maybe go to the gym. Oh man, you could get like Yuko and Kenji involved. That'd be fun, just get like a Gekkoukan High School body improvement club going. And Nozomi wouldn't even have to go from his current size to being a twink. I think you can really do a lot expressing this through, you know, different dialogue, body language. Just make him seem more confident and happy with himself. And finally, get rid of the cult shit. It is too much negativity on top of an already negative social link. It's like getting slapped in the face repeatedly. First of all, he's like this fat, lazy fuck who just eats all day. Bam! Then you learn that he's like a Jehovah's Witness and he's in a cult and shit. That's another bam. And then you learn he's stealing money from people, and that's another bam. And even though by the end of it he learns to stop doing these things, I feel like the damage is kind of done for his character. Nobody really remembers Nozomi the guy who stopped doing that. They remember Nozomi the guy who just ate all the time and stole money from people. So is Nozomi's the worst social link? It's not great. I don't know if I would necessarily consider it the absolute worst, but it's definitely in the bottom tier for me. There's just too much going against the guy. He doesn't really have a whole lot of positive qualities. He's confrontational, he's unpleasant to talk to, he steals money from people, he's gluttonous. He has weird religious affiliations, and in terms of the actual structure of the thing itself, it just feels like you're not ever making progress towards anything. You just learn more things about him that suck. And like I said, sucking at the beginning is fine, but it's just the lack of willingness to improve. I think that really is what kills the link at the end of the day. It's never, oh yeah, protagonist, I want to get better, I don't want to be this way, I want to like not steal money from people, I want to like, you know, I want to have a good life or whatever. It's always just 5 more bowls of ramen and also I take money from people. And of course, by the very end, he does stop doing that, but it kind of feels too little too late. Overall, I do honestly kind of feel like Nozomi's social link does deserve the shit it gets. I can safely say I would rather hang out with any other Persona 3 character than him, and I think that's a very bad sign. But yeah, that has been the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed this, and maybe I'll do some more of these kind of social link reviews in the future. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time.